It was a quiet April morning in the sleepy Oxfordshire town of Cartersfield. In fact, Cartersfield was quiet most of the time. A milk float turned into Bloxham Drive. The red-bricked 2 up, 2 downs nestled neatly together, complete with obligatory garage and commuter car. The milkman lifted a crate of gold and silver tops to deliver to number 17. Next door at number 15, super cool early bird reporter Jeff Owens, with ponytail and leather jacket, went to his sports car and put a silver case into the boot. He could see it was going to be a pleasant day, and, unfastening the sunroof, saw an even more pleasant sight emerge from number 17.
Hi, Rachel.
Morning, Jeff.
As he climbed into his car, Jeff adjusted the rear-view mirror to catch sight of Rachel bending down to pick up her morning milk. She looked good, even at this hour of the morning. As he passed number 2, a slightly older but elegant brunette waved and smiled. In number 17, Rachel meandered towards the television, munching her morning cereal. On top of the set stood a large red and white Valentine card. Rachel poured some milk into her cup of tea, took a sip, and pondered on the day ahead. Now, studying herself in the mirror, she tied back her long brown hair. While outside in the morning breeze, neighbour Mrs. Adams, plump grey lady, was putting rubbish into the dustbin in her back garden, and, through the foliage, saw a figure disappear into Rachel's garden, but didn't seem too concerned and went back inside. Rachel was now standing by the window in the kitchen, putting on her lipstick in a long mirror. The morning sun produced a shadow on the white blind beside her. A shot rang out as a bullet pierced the blind and smashed into her skull. Expressionless, she fell limply to the floor, smashing into the breakfast things. Milk poured from a bottle onto the floor, forming a macabre pool of red and white. Chief Inspector Morse was in Chief Superintendent Strange's office, fetching a report.
I hate this time of year.
April is the cruelest month.
Well, it certainly is for one young woman and her family. I don't know, Morse. I've been looking into my pension. When you pay in all your life and you think you're all right, but when the time comes, it's not half what you thought it was going to be.
You're not.
Oh, no. Mind you, you've got to make way for the young sometime.
Why? You can't retire, sir. What would you do? Learn to make filet de boeuf en croûte and creme brulee?
Well, as a matter of fact, it's all very well for you. You're not married. Don't you ever get sick of it, Morse? Spending your entire life on shootings, stabbing, strangling.
Work. That's the secret of life. You have to buckle down and give it your best. That's what my father said.
Oh. And you better buckle on down after Lewis and see you shot this poor girl. And you will give it your best, won't you?
Later, Morse arrived at Bloxham Drive. A uniformed policeman took a quick glance and raised the yellow tape that was keeping the neighbours from the murder scene. And Sergeant Lewis was having a chat with Mrs. Adams.
I saw him.
Definitely a him.
Well, do you think I can't tell the difference at my age? 2 husbands I've had, 6 children, 18 grandchildren.
Did you hear a shot? Or any loud bangs?
20 past. I was just putting the ashes out. Going down the back he was. He had a hat on and all. I thought he was her fancy man.
All right. Thanks very much.
Morse joined Lewis, and the two walked up the path and into number 17.
We have deadline to go. I don't know what the chief super told you, sir, but
Super Lewis is losing his grip.
well, he's getting on.
No, he's not. He's the same age as... You realise, if he goes,
You wouldn't resign.
I wouldn't have to. It'd be out of my ear. Bring in some smarty pants young... Take one look at me.
Well, mind, we could use some new thinking in Thames Valley.
Thinking, Lewis, thinking, old or new, would be a very welcome change all round.
As they entered the kitchen, the sight before them made them wince.
Ready for you yet, Morse? Guess you'd like to give me a hand.
Amongst the clamour, Dr. Laura Hobson was crouched over Rachel's body, her gloved hands covered in blood. Dennis Cornford put a towel around his waist, left the shower, and joined a sexily dressed young girl on the edge of his 4-poster bed.
Stocking tops.
Naked man.
Oh, I got to be in college in a minute.
So?
It's the big meeting about the mastership.
Don't worry. You're gonna win. You're gonna grind that Julian Stores beneath your chariot wheels.
Although much older than Shelley, she brought out the devil in him, and the two fell back on the bed in a passionate embrace. Later, Cornford arrived at the Lonsdale with the meeting well underway. Leaving the car just outside the main building, he ran inside and found a porter and gave him the keys.
Park car for me, would you?
Although not a young man, Cornford was in good shape. He had to be. As he hurried across the quadrangle, bag in hand, he struggled to put on his college gown. In the senior common room, the ever-devious master of Lonsdale, Sir Clixby Breen, was, as ever, stirring things up.
Of course, we could always change the statutes, and I could simply stay on as master. One of my predecessors continued in office till 103. I don't know if anyone wants to urge that cause. Mrs. Hammersby, perhaps?
If I had such an urge, Master, I would repress it.
Oh, but it's so bad to repress urges. I never do.
It's 9:35, Master.
Ah, well, when a middle-aged fellow marries one of his students, and a ravishingly beautiful one at that.
I'm so sorry, Master.
The college accepts your apology, Dennis. In my case, with envy. May we proceed?
Back at the crime scene, Morse and Lewis were outside in Rachel's back garden.
How close was he when he fired the shot?
Right up against the window. If the blind was down, she wouldn't have seen it.
And how the hell did he see her?
Charlie, do the blind bit, would you?
A detective in a white coat came to the window and pulled the blind. He stooped so his shadow aligned with the bullet hole. Morse nodded.
Right.
It was instant, if that's any comfort.
I suppose it's no good asking when.
No, you can come in now.
People opposite saw Miss James collecting the milk just after 7. She was Miss Rachel James, 27, single, physio. Worked at a clinic on Woodstock Road. Parents lived at Torquay. Then the woman next door, she saw what she thought was Miss James's fancy man, around the back there, 25 past.
Fancy, indeed.
They made their way into the living room.
And another neighbour was taking a dog for a walk along the path at the back there, 7:35. She saw the light on and the crack in the window.
Nice narrow parameters for you, Morse. Should have it all solved before I finish the autopsy.
It's easy enough for you, bullet hole like that.
Oh, a snip. A snip here to see if Miss James was pregnant. A snip there to see if she had some fatal disease. Be snipping all morning.
Morse saw the Valentine card on the TV. He picked it up. It read, "To my Valentine. Physiotherapists do it with their hands, knees, and boomsy daisy."
Someone loved her.
The college meeting was now in full flow.
Due notice having been given and due process observed, there are therefore only two candidates for the office of 35th Master of Lonsdale. Julian Storrs and Dennis Convert. A straight fight like this sadly gives little opportunity for horse trading. But malice and spite are gratifyingly increased by the fact that you know the candidates so well. I'm sure they will both do their best to uphold the college tradition.
Thank you, Master.
And Cornford responded, holding out his hand across the table.
May the best man win.
I, alas, have no vote, and am therefore spared the blandishments of the candidates. The rest of you will have to bear them as you can. Tomorrow, being Founder's Feast, the electioneering will no doubt be specially intemperate. Any other business? No? Then I declare the meeting closed.
Smiling, Breen got up and whispered in the ear of colleague Dora Hammersby.
A lively young wife in the master's lodgings. Might it not lead to scandal?
Better than an old girl.
Meanwhile, DC Jackson was showing Morse and Lewis around Rachel's back garden.
Look at the state of this fence, sir. Anyone could have got through there, no trouble.
Where does this path run to and from, Jackson?
It runs all along behind the houses, out to the road. Easy enough. Leave the car, walk down the path, through the fence, down the garden. Be in and out in a couple of minutes.
Was he leading her up the garden path beforehand? Who sent that Valentine, Lewis? Fancy man of a certain age. Hands, knees and bumps, said Daisy. Not exactly top of the pops, is it?
Patient, perhaps?
You better get down to that clinic and see what our colleagues have to say.
The phone went in Storrs' college room.
Julian Storrs? Angela, I'm sorry. Yes, it's as we thought. It's just Dennis and me.
Good, and it's ours. I never count chickens, darling, but I do collect debts. I don't care. We're going to win.
Angela Storrs put down the kitchen phone and gingerly approached the vodka bottle.
Just one, Angela. Just to celebrate.
Get doors open, will you?
Meanwhile, at Bloxham Drive, Morse and Lewis watched as the body was taken away. Jeff Owens was on the scene.
Chief Inspector, it was a single shot, was it?
All in good time.
Anyone hear it? A couple of the neighbours think they may have done. Not Mrs. Adams, though.
No,
She's deaf as a post, even with her hearing aid. And this side, it's Jeff Owens, Oxford man. Well, I didn't hear anything. I'd gone to work.
Well, why the hell didn't you say so before?
After the meeting, Dennis Cornford and Dora Hammersby were walking through the college grounds.
8. Got 8 solid. 4 more
Yes,
and then you're
well,
home.
the master may be a bastard, but he had Shelley and me to dinner last night with George Summers, Allied Steel Engineering. Nice chap. Used to be a pupil of Clixby's. And
Allied Steel Engineering may be offering the college 2 new fellowships, worth approximately $1.5 million.
How the hell did you know that?
Clixby gave Summers lunch with Julian and Angela Storrs. It's obvious. Summers will only stump up if the new master is the one Clixby wants.
Hell.
Well, you must find out what Clixby wants for his support. Angela, needless to say, is telling everyone they've got the mastership in their pocket already.
Then they got another thing coming.
I certainly hope so. We can't have her lording it over the college.
I know it runs against all Oxford tradition, Dora, but I'm not standing just to stop the Storrs. I actually want the job, and I'm going to get it.
Morse and Jeff Owens were chatting in Rachel's living room.
I'm all for flexi time. I can get a day's work in before anyone else arrives, and I miss the traffic both ways. Of course, if I'd known, I'd miss a murder as well.
How did you hear about it?
Della Cecil at number 2. She's a friend of mine. She phoned me at work.
You're not married, I take it?
No?
There's no one else living at your house?
No.
And this Mrs...
Cecil. Miss Cecil. No. She's just a friend. Alas.
And what about Miss James? How well did you know her?
We were neighbours. She borrowed my corkscrew once. I borrowed her jumper.
Did she have a boyfriend? Someone sent her a valentine.
Not me.
Any close friends in the village?
She and Della were pretty close. Had each other's keys and so on. Why don't you ask her?
Thank you, sir. It would never have occurred to me to question the neighbours.
Look, I don't suppose I'm a photographer.
You don't suppose correctly, sir.
Right. Thanks.
At the local music school, Della Cecil was at the piano, accompanying a young would-be opera star. Morse arrived and stood there by the door, in silence.
Now, I want you to concentrate on finding Cherubino's frustration. Un desiderio che non posso spiegare, mi fa palpitare.
Miss Cecil.
Amidst the hurly-burly of the Oxford Mail, Jeff Owens was hard at work. On a partition wall next to his desk were an array of photographs. Amongst the many female faces were smiling shots of Rachel James and Adele Cecil. Now done, he pushed a button on his mobile phone and made his way from the office.
Dr. Stores, this is Jeff Owens, Oxford Mail. We'd like to do a piece on the up-and-coming election at Lonsdale, but I need a bit of background, something about yourself, your wife, your kids. Do you have any kids? I'd especially like to talk to Mrs. Stores, how she sees the role of master's wife in modern-day Oxford.
Morse was walking with Adele through the grounds of the music school.
Rachel didn't have much luck. With men, I mean. They were always married or turned out gay. I kept telling her she mustn't let herself be the victim. She was down in the dumps after yet another crisis in her love life, so I took her to a concert at Lonsdale. I helped with the music there, you see. I thought a little Vivaldi might cheer her up.
It's about all Vivaldi's good for, if you ask me.
Well, Rachel didn't know about music. I don't know, policeman.
I'm a Wagner man myself.
Oh, well, Wagner. Now that is music. Although he was a horrible man.
Beauty and ugliness. I meet those in my profession every day. So, what happened at this concert?
There's a fellow of Lonsdale. He's quite well known, actually. Julian Stores. 60, married, typical Rachel. Of course, she wanted him to leave his wife, but that was never on. Julian, Angela, she's a very strong sort of, I'm sure. I mean, I can't imagine Julian. He's running for master at the college.
I understand you had keys to Miss James's house.
Yes, she was always losing hers.
Did you use them often?
Occasionally. Last month, for instance. She was in London with Julian, and it started to snow. She rang me to go in and switch the central heating on.
You still got those keys?
At home, yes. Do you want them?
Possibly. Would Dr. Storrs have sent that?
He handed her Rachel's Valentine card. She opened it and shook her head.
Was there anyone else in her life?
Oh, no. No, she may have been a poor picker, but she was always loyal to whom she picked.
You said, to whom? My sergeant, I've been trying to teach him the difference between who and whom for years. Well, thanks very much, Miss Cecil.
My name's Adele.
I thought Mr. Owen said...
I particularly dislike being called Della. It's pretty sensible.
Back at the stores, and a few vodkas for the worse, in an attempt to sober up, Angela poured herself a black coffee, but spilled it on the floor by mistake.
Angela Storrs. Yes, just a minute. Sorry. Who's speaking? Yes, it's me. Oh, no, of course I haven't forgotten. How could I? Yes. As arranged.
She pushed the teletext button on the TV, on the news page. Her mouth gaped open as she saw the headlines, "Police have named the victim of this morning's shooting in Cartersfield, Oxfordshire as physiotherapist Rachel James of 17 Loxon Drive."
Diana's mum. Can you get over here right away? No, darling, now.
Jeff Owens was now in town at a restaurant, and just for a change, on his mobile.
Dennis, it's Jeffrey. I need to speak to you about your article. And I've got a few questions I'd like to ask about your standing for the mastership. If you wouldn't mind calling me. 0836 276 259. Thanks.
In walked Amber, a pretty brunette in a smart blue suit. She kissed him hello.
God, what a morning. I'm starving.
Champagne lift your spirits.
Bucks Fizz would.
A Bucks Fizz, please, and another of these for me. While we're about it, will you put a bottle of number 17 on ice? Thanks.
It was drinks time too for Morse and Lewis as they arrived at a local pub.
3 of them work in this clinic. Well, there was 3. The other 2 are really upset. Like Miss Jones a lot. They were both married with kids. Didn't see much of her outside work. She didn't talk about her private life.
No, well, she wouldn't, would she? Not when she was having an affair with a married man. Hands, knees, and bumps a daisy. Julian Storrs sent that Valentine, I'll bet you anything. What are you having? Pint, hope you think?
Nice.
No, you'll be driving. An orange juice, please, and I'll have a pint of that. Miss Cecil, Miss Adele Cecil, she introduced them. She regrets it now, but a highly intelligent woman, Lewis. Likes Wagner. And doesn't like that reporter.
So why'd you ring and tell him about the murder? What have you got against him?
Well, his hair to start with, and his car. Bulbous little vulgarity.
That'll be £3.15.
Do you reckon he fancied Rachel James?
Says not, but...
Have you got anything smaller, sir? It's just I've changed a couple of 20s already today and I'm right out of change.
Sorry. Lewis, do you have... Thank you.
As Julian Storrs pulled up in his driveway, he noticed a familiar vehicle parked by the house. It was his daughter, Diane's. She was having lunch with Mother in the garden.
I really don't want to do anything, but... Well, you know how Jack is.
Diane, I'm only asking you for one small favour. You know how much I've done for you?
Don't bully me, Mum. You've always bullied me.
No, so I'm not bullying you now. I'm simply asking you.
Well, this is a pleasant surprise, Diane.
Surprise, anyway.
Have you had lunch, Julian?
Back in the pub,
Mustn't jump to conclusions, of course, but suppose Owens did fancy Miss James. Suppose he was jealous of him.
Of who?
Lewis. Of Stores. Suppose Miss James rejected Owens' advances.
Suppose she didn't. Suppose she was carrying on with Stores and Owens. And suppose your Miss Cecil fancied Owens and was jealous of her.
She's not my Miss Cecil, and she doesn't even like him.
Says not. But suppose she was having an affair with Owens and he was looking next door instead. She had the key to the house. She could have been in and out there all the time, sniffing things out.
We are not looking for a woman, Lewis.
She put you straight on the Stores, didn't she? She pretends not to like Owens, but she gives him his alibi.
Right, let's check that alibi. You go down to the Oxford Mail. Find out precisely when Owens got there. Find out everything about him. There's something wrong with that man. Feel it in my...
Beer?
I think it is. No, I'll take you up on it later. Now, let's get on.
At the college, Cornford was in his quarters and had returned Jeff Owen's call.
What do you mean it's too erudite? All right, but for God's sake... What? Wouldn't anyone feel better suited to the mastership than Julian? No, you can't quote that. I see nothing wrong with ambition. Matter of fact, I don't think there's enough of it about. I'd rather not do that if... No, we're not politicians. It's all very gentlemanly. Well, Julian's willing, I suppose. So long as there's nothing too personal. Can we do both at once?
Yes, I can arrange that. Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Morse had paid Stores a visit in his college quarters. Stores stood there, the Valentine card in his hand.
It's childish, I know, but... Well, it wasn't really a grand passion on her side or mine. It was more a... I just liked her very much. Well, she understood. She...
Understood what, sir?
My wife is a... We met on a cruise in the Pacific. I was the, guest lecturer. And she, well, everyone drinks rather a lot on those things, and, tell you the truth, I didn't really notice. Do you want another?
Thanks, I'm fine.
She, Angela, in her own way, she's... Look, there's no need for her to know about me and Rachel, is there?
I don't know, sir. Where were you at 7 o'clock this morning?
Me? Oh, up and about. I like to start work early, always have done, ever since I was well, anthropology begins at dawn. Before, sometimes.
Can your wife confirm where you were, sir?
Well, you see, we have separate bedrooms. She likes to sleep in, you see, and... But this morning, as it happens, I went into hers, and we... But for God's sake, if you ask her about that, she'll want to know why. She'll...
No other witness, sir.
What, do you have witnesses when you're in bed with your wife?
I'm not married. Miss Cecil...
Oh, come on. Don't want to believe everything Adele Cecil tells you. I'm sorry, she didn't approve of our liaison. She was hardly one to speak. She, one of my colleagues and she, they...
Which colleague was that?
I'm sorry, I'd really rather not say. It was Dennis Cornford. My rival for master, as it happens. He's married since. If you ask me, that's why Adele...
What would the fellows say if they knew what both candidates had been up to?
Congratulations, I should imagine. The only way you can get rid of a master here is for moral turpitude. And if that meant fornication, we'd be lucky to keep one in 500 years.
As Storrs went to pour another drink, Morse went to the mantelpiece, to a picture of Captain Cook.
I understand they take rather that liberal view in the Pacific.
What? Oh, yes, well, they did till the wretched missionaries got there. You,
My father was obsessed with Captain Cook. Captain James Cook, 1728 to 1779, he always called him. Said he was the greatest explorer that ever lived.
Oh, well, you see, he couldn't say that nowadays. No, the correct modern view is the Western explorers brought guns, disease, and Christianity, each equally destructive to an idyllic way of life. Idyllic. Well...
Storrs picked up the card.
Rachel. If things had been different. Oh, God! You know, sometimes I wish I ran a little corner shop and sold jujubes.
I expect you'd really rather run a college, son.
Yes, well... I think I'm really more a scholar than an administrator. I got a 2-day conference this weekend in Bath, as a matter of fact. But it means a great deal to my wife.
Shelley was in the cornford garden, carrying a basket of flowers, when the phone rang.
Hi, Shelley Cornford. Oh, Quicksby, hello. Well, yeah, okay. I can manage that.
Lewis had paid us, Jeff Owen's boss at the Mail.
You know what it's like around here, Sergeant? You don't put razor wire in a ring of anti-personnel mines around your car park.
Lord Nuffield didn't know what he was starting.
Yeah, but with this system, we can not only keep unauthorised cars out, we can check who's coming in and out and when. With flexi time, there's rather too much having to trust people's word about when they come and go.
Can't rely on anyone these days. How's Mr. Owens?
Oh, I don't mean Jeff. One of the hardest working people on my staff. Oh, here between 7 and 7:20 every morning, week in, week out. Not due till 7:30. Good company man, Jeff.
What about this morning?
7:18 and 14 seconds.
And you left again?
8:43 and 57 seconds.
Thanks. It's just with him being a neighbour, you know.
He's furious. Lives next door to a murder and misses it.
Clixby Bream had taken Shelley house hunting.
No use to you, Clixby. You couldn't get half your books in, and to make a decent drawing room, you'd have to gut the whole front and put in at least 2 RSJs.
Whatever they may be. I do love house hunting. It gives me a chance to pry into other people's lives, all their little squalors and shabbiness.
This place is only shabby because they're going to move.
Your house isn't shabby. Your taste. Everyone thinks it most original.
But we're not going to move. Or are we?
It was so sweet of you to lend your expertise to help an old man. Can I beg the further favour of a cup of tea before I return to the lodgings, which could so easily...
Lewis had returned to the station.
Ah, Lewis. What's the stop press from the Oxford Mail? Geoffrey Owens has done a pretty good story. And what's the story on Geoffrey Owens?
He's clocked into the car park 7:18, clocked out again 8:43. Forensic says the gun was a Beretta 38 automatic. Well, and Dr. Hobson says Miss James wasn't pregnant. Stalls say where he was.
In bed with his wife. Having an affair often makes a man keener to make love to his wife, they tell me.
No one makes love before breakfast, not on a weekday.
He'd got a bad back too. Used to tell his wife he was going off to see his physio, which of course he was. Let's see what Mrs. Storrs says she was doing this morning.
Bream and Shelley were now having that cup of tea in the Cornford's garden.
So classically beautiful here. Nymph and shepherd and a crystal lake.
More chemical than crystal. The farmer lets his slurry leak into the stream and it kills all the fish.
Oh dear. Appearance and reality at odds again. 2 sugars, please. Your appearance and reality aren't at odds, though. You really do love Dennis, in spite of the age difference.
Because of it, maybe. Experience and innocence, you know?
How much do you know about his experience?
I know about Adele Cecil, if that's what you mean.
She wasn't the only one.
I should hope not. A man his age? Anyways, I'm more interested in the future than the past.
Quite right. Away with old fogies like me. Not relevant, are we? Not like, is it media studies Dennis wants to introduce? So we'll all know how to work our videos?
Well, you need a PhD for that.
You and Dennis, you misjudge me, you know. I live entirely for the present. People do as they get older.
Well, I'm glad there are compensations.
And to be brutally up to the minute, not to say state of the art, I presently have power to change your life. And I don't see the point of having power if one doesn't abuse it, do you?
This isn't funny, Quicksby.
No. The deal is, as you Americans say, I can make Dennis master, but only if you... Think of it as charity, my dear. Making an old man happy.
Old man? Oh, creep. And when I tell Dennis...
Oh, if Dennis gets to know this conversation, George Summers will express his preference for Julian Stores immediately.
You can just piss off out of our garden.
Think about it, my dear. The tiny sacrifice. The huge reward. Thanks for tea.
As Angela Stores chatted to Morse in her living room, she was pouring vodka and tonics at a frantic pace.
Are you sure you won't have one?
Thanks, but on duty, you know.
I'm sorry. I am rather nervous. I've never been questioned by the police before.
It's not really a questioning, madam. We just have to eliminate all Miss James's clients from our inquiries.
Of course. Such a horrible...
All I really need to know is where your husband was between 7 and 7:30 this morning.
What did he tell you? Well, it's true. But I don't know how you expect us to prove it.
You're quite sure of the time, Mrs. Stores?
When you get to our age, Inspector, it happens so rarely you remember every single detail. I think it must have been the excitement about the college that set my husband off. Did he tell you about that?
Yes.
Anyway, as it happens, my radio alarm went off just as Jim naughty at a time like that. And before you ask if there were any witnesses to this sadly unusual act, well, I had a pretty good figure when I was young, and I tried most things, but public lovemaking. Have you ever tried that?
No.
Nor have I. So, does this mean you're going to keep us on your list of suspects?
What makes you think that you're a suspect, madam?
Oh, but suppose my husband did it and I was lying to protect him. Wouldn't that make me an accessory?
Yes.
Well, perhaps he did. Perhaps I am. But we mustn't joke about such things. That poor girl. You're sure you wouldn't like a drink?
Quite sure. Thank you.
As Neil started the drive back to the office, Angela stood, tottering, in the doorway.
Maybe Mrs. Storrs killed Miss James? She had the motive.
And she couldn't shoot straight enough. Not the amount she drinks.
Well, there's people, surgeons and that, drink to steady themselves.
We are looking for a man, Lewis.
Morse. How's it going?
Nothing much to report yet, sir.
What's the matter? Brain not what it was?
My brain is fine, thank you. I did today's Times crossword in 11 minutes.
If you spent less time on your crosswords, matey, and more on your cases, perhaps you would have something to tell me. I'd like to have something to tell the Chief Constable tomorrow morning. It's his team against the Lord Lieutenant. And the Chief's done me the honour of asking me to tee off with him against Sir Henry.
Nice for you. Give you a chance to get some advice about your pension. Huh? Well, he's the chairman of an insurance company, isn't he?
One doesn't talk business on a golf course, Morse. You keep him up to the mark with this. No more crosswords. And a lot less beer.
Later that day, Adele returned home, surprised to see Dennis Cornford arriving at number 15 and greeted by Jeff Owens.
Mr. Cornford.
Hello, Jeff.
Dennis Cornford had been for a morning run around the lanes with a friend, and when he arrived home, there was Shelley in the kitchen making breakfast, still a bit shell-shocked. He gave her a hug.
Hi there.
Oh, Dennis. It's the first fine careless rapture. It's supposed to wear off, you know?
Who says? Right. Founder's feast tonight. Angela will be wearing something extremely expensive and vulgar. So we must go for understated elegance. What have you got?
You know the secrets of my wardrobe, hon.
Yes. Time for a commando raid on the boutiques. We gotta show this woman up, Shelley. People quite like Julian. We've got to keep reminding them what a cow she is.
We're not just a teeny bit letting this election affect our judgment, are we?
Nothing in my life has ever mattered more. And you are entirely to blame. I used to laugh at people who talked about having a purpose in life. Not anymore.
As he left the room, the smile disappeared from her lips. It was breakfast time too for the Storrs. Julian was staying in a rather grand hotel in Bath, preparing for the conference.
Come in.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, madam.
A maid entered the room with two large silver platters.
Just down there, please.
If there's anything else you need, please ring room service.
Thank you very much.
He lifted the lid off one of the platters.
Angela.
Full English breakfast.
Breakfast.
All the trimmings, coffee and toast. Meanwhile, in Bloxham Drive, you see Dixon sat in a patrol car, keeping watch of the murder scene, when Amber's car pulled up outside Owen's house. Running up to the door, she pressed the doorbell. With no answer, she stood back and looked up at the bedroom window. You see Dixon climbed out of the car to join her.
Jeff! Jeffrey!
Something the matter, madam?
We're supposed to be going racing, but he won't answer the phone, and he's usually out by 6:30, but I can't wake him.
They could see him through the window lying on the sofa, but he didn't respond.
Mr. Owen?
He was dead, with a bullet
Mr. Owen?
lodged in his head.
Mr. Owens?
Morse and Lewis were soon on their way to the scene. but were stuck in the Oxford traffic.
Tourists. Come on, for God's sake. Move over. Weekend drivers! Don't need to kill us.
As they arrived, Amber was being led away by a woman PC from the scene, which was awash with forensics.
It's number 15.
I know it is, Dixon, and I know where you were supposed to be all night. Keeping Bloxham Drive safe for its inhabitants.
I was here, sir.
Did you hear the shot?
No, sir.
What were you listening to? Heavy metal?
In the living room, the forensic team were developing a sense of déjà vu as Hobson was fishing a ruby-red bullet from Owen's blood-spattered head.
Oh, Morse. Look at this. Looks awfully like the twin brother of the one that did such a good job next door. I'll excavate the other one when I get back to the lab.
Any idea when?
Same time as yesterday, I should guess. 7 to 7:30. As to tomorrow's, I should say probably 7 to 7:30. Shall we put it in our diaries now?
Looks like Owen's let him in, sir. No sign of forcible entry. The front door was locked and back door was shut, but the snip wasn't on, so...
Right. Came through the garden again.
Don't you think you should put a guard on number 13?
What?
I'm sure the few remaining unmurdered citizens of Bloxham Drive will welcome a little protection. And the killer's working his way down the street. 17, 15... 13's obviously next.
A grisly job for a woman, Lewis. These remarks she keeps making. It's a form of displacement activity.
Oh, yeah?
Who lives at number 13? Wait a minute. 11, 15. There is no number 13. Come on.
With the rear garden still knee-deep in forensics, Morse and Lewis walked around the back of number 15 and proceeded along the path.
Coming along from there, looking for Owens at number 15. 7, 9, 11, 13, 15. But as the builder was superstitious, and there's no number 13, 9 times out of 10, the victim is known to the murderer. Rachel James was the 10th. She didn't know him. And he didn't know her. Because it wasn't her he meant to kill.
But I know he fired through the blind at Miss James, at her silhouette. But even so, surely he could see it was a woman.
Rachel James had her hair pulled back, didn't she? Like his horrible ponytail. Talk about death by misadventure.
Mistaken for the next door neighbour.
You'd better get back to the Oxford Mail. I'll see what I can dig up here.
In the High Street and arm in arm, Cornford and Shelley were clothes shopping.
Let's try.
No, it's too expensive.
Nonsense. It's war to the death. I wanted to blow Angela right out of the water.
And it was war too on the golf course, as Chief Superintendent Strange's mobile rang,
Hell.
making Sir Henry miss his stroke out of the bunker.
Strange?
I thought you should know, sir. I think Rachel James was killed by mistake for Geoffrey Owens.
I don't care if she was... Yeah, all right, thanks. Yes, right, thanks. Sorry, sir, I forgot to switch it off. You shouldn't bring your work onto the course, Strange. It's no way to relax. Just doesn't do.
Let's play the shot again, Sir Henry, of course.
Thank you, I will.
Bloody hell!
Lewis had returned to the Mail and was particularly interested in Owen's pin-up gallery.
Is he working on anything dodgy?
Well, what he told me, he just had the usual local stories.
People like him.
Never any complaints. He's a bit reserved, aloof, you might say. Well, I mean, coming in earlier than anyone else, leaving before everyone else. He didn't mix with the rest of us. He didn't seem to want to.
He only really had one hobby.
She's the one that was going racing with him this morning. This one lives right across the road. She's very iffy about him, apparently. Now I see why.
Not into commitment, our Geoffrey. If you ask me, starting early in the morning, damn good excuse for not staying the night before, if you follow me.
Complicated love life, though. How much did she pay her?
Not enough for the way he carried on. Always assumed he had private money.
Cornford had found the perfect dress for Shelley and was trying to convince her to buy a spare.
I don't need two, darling.
We'll need 10 when I'm master. We're going to be dining all over England.
I'm perfectly happy with life as it is, Dennis. You mustn't be disappointed if
You
things...
don't honestly think I could lose?
No.
To Julian's stores?
No, it's just... You want it so badly. It's scary.
If I don't get the mastership, it'll be too late. I'll have wasted my... I'll have let you down.
Okay. Okay. Let's leave these in your room. I'll change there before the feast, and they won't get crushed in the car.
As they hugged, she felt her smile disappear yet again.
You stopped taking your clothes off in college.
Morse was at his desk and picked up a file marked Investments with a photograph of a white-haired man outside a strip club.
Lewis, look at this. Owens was a blackmailer. I found all these in his study.
So that's where the money came from. Certainly wasn't his salary.
Looks like he was under something at Lonsdale College. Here's his own story, written a few weeks ago, about the Master of Lonsdale's retirement. There's nothing in it that everyone doesn't know already. So why should he keep it in a special file? And put these initials there. D.C. It's Dennis Cornford. He's one of the college fellows. Candidate to succeed C.B. So Clixby Bream.
Who's AM?
I don't know. It's not Julian Stores, obviously. We can forget about Stores now we know his girlfriend was murdered by mistake.
Well, he couldn't have killed Owens anyway. Not if he was in Bath.
Well, it's better check that he was, I suppose. Make sure there really is a conference.
Right.
Lewis pointed to the figure outside the strip club.
Oh, he's faced, haven't I?
Lord Hardiman. He used to be government spokesman on transport. Very hot on family values. Haven't heard him pronouncing recently. And these others, well, this one is fraud, this one is fiddling with the books, and this, you can see for yourself. They all go back a long way, but this one I have heard of. Kenneth Martin was a businessman about to sail away from his wife with some bimbo. So wife and daughter shot him and then set fire to the boat.
Alice Martin. She's AM.
She is indeed, but what's she got to do with the Mastership of Lonsdale? I want all these people investigated, now.
So I've got to go to my son's school this afternoon. See the headmaster.
On a Saturday?
Yeah, it's him and his mates. I don't know what they've done exactly.
The headmaster summoned all the parents.
I'm sorry, miss, we're dealing with a double murder here.
I've got to go, sir. I'll only be an hour or so.
Well, do what you can before you go.
As Lewis left, Morse sat there fuming. Surely work came first, he just didn't understand it. Adele Cecil was taking refuge in her living room.
Adele! It's Morse!
Sorry. I've had journalists ringing the bell all morning. It's been absolute...
Like to get out for a bit? I realize you and Jeffrey Owens had...
No, we did not. I could never... Not with a man like that.
Like what, exactly?
You couldn't trust him.
Shelley Cornford stood in her dining room. Breen slowly moved towards her.
Come on. You can't seriously expect me to jeopardize my marriage, my own happiness, and Dennis's.
Well, now, Dennis's happiness. You're new to Oxford. You don't understand. The Dons are malicious, spiteful creatures. They don't vote for someone. They vote against them. That's why they'll vote against Dennis, even though he's the best man for the job.
Why? I don't understand.
He's let them know how much he wants it. A fatal error. They'll vote for Julian in spite of his wife, because he doesn't seem so ambitious. Though, of course, he is. Probably more.
Are you saying... Do you mean Julian already has it in the bag? Because if so...
It would be if the bag in this case wasn't a money bag. The spite of the Lonsdale fellows is nothing compared to their greed. And £1.5 million. Well, I really do control the future, Shelley. Dennis can be master, but only if you do what I want. I think you should ask yourself, would Dennis ever forgive you if he knew you'd ruined the one great chance in his life?
While Shelley grappled with an impossible situation, Morse and Adele were strolling quietly in the town's botanical gardens.
You drove him mad. All the other girls rolled over, but I'm not like that. I look for... I don't know, but not...
If that's how you felt, how could you be friends?
Oh, I baffled him. Jeff wanted to understand what it was I think I was the only one who ever told him off. His mum died when he was a little boy, you see. He left his whole family behind when he moved south. He boasted about that. How they were all very ordinary people, while he... It's not very flattering to be treated as mother by someone of his age, but... There was a conscience there. Vestigial.
Very vestigial, I'd say. Did you know he was a blackmailer? He seems to have been blackmailing Sir Clixby Bream, among others. And, I believe you also know Dennis Cornford. He seems to have been blackmailing him, too.
Oh, my God. This is too awful.
What?
Dennis went to see Geoffrey last night. I saw him.
Back at the Cornfords, Shelley's face was ashen as she climbed the wooden stairs. Behind her, grinning like a Cheshire cat, wicked blue eyes alight, was Breen.
Join you in a minute.
She pointed to the spare bedroom. Breen smiled wide and, for a change, did as he would bid. Shelley went to her own bedroom and changed into a multicoloured gown. Like an animal going to the slaughter, she walked into the spare bedroom and closed the curtain. Lewis was at the school with his son.
I hate French. That's got nothing to do with it. It's a question of manners. But at least we've brought you up to be well-mannered. Quite apart from the fact we've got a double murder on our hands. I've had to leave work in the middle of an investigation because of you and your mates.
Can you help me write my apology? Please, Dad, you know I'm no good at French.
Ask your mother. I've got to get back to work.
When you get home, Dad?
Well, I may be late tonight.
You never help me. You're always too busy.
Come on.
Why do you put up with it? That stupid old bloke ordering you about.
Now look.
Time you got a life.
Morse had paid a visit to Cornford at the college with some bad news.
That's funny. Geoffrey Owens. You may have been the last person to see him alive, except his murderer, of course. What were you doing at Owens last night?
Well, he wanted to do an interview about the mastership. Seemed pretty sure I was going to get it. I don't know why. And I do bits and pieces for the Mail, economic matters. I'd done a piece on the EMU, actually, trying to simplify it for the layman.
How long were you there?
About half an hour.
And then?
I went home. My wife will tell you.
See, it's not so much last night as this morning. First thing, isn't it?
Oh, that's easy enough. I jogged before breakfast along the lanes around Rousham with Paul Thompson. He's a solicitor in Bicester. He'll tell you.
Thank you, sir. And the journalism, that's your only connection with Mr. Owens?
Absolutely.
Sure, sir. Because, you see, we believe he was engaged in blackmail.
Good God. Jeff. Really?
We found a piece of paper with your initials, among others.
There must be hundreds, thousands of people with my initials.
Connected with Siglit's Be Brief. I understand, sir, that you and Miss Adele Cecil.
Oh, everyone knows that. I mean, it was before I went to America and met my wife.
Does she know about it?
Of course.
Any time you want to do it again.
Once was quite enough.
Well, if that's your attitude. Actually, you could do it 1,000 times, and I still wouldn't support Dennis. You Americans are so naive.
What the hell do you mean?
Dennis once had an affair with my wife. Never told you that, did he? He ruined my marriage. I've waited a long time for the chance to ruin his. Thank you for being so obliging.
But you said
you sold yourself like a common whore. For nothing. Dennis will never be master.
Master?
See you at Founder's Feast, my dear.
As the Stores arrived home, Angela lay slumped next to Julian in the seat.
Oh, God, I'm sorry. Did I?
Well, if you will drink vodkas and tonic before lunch, then have a whole bottle of wine. Darling, look.
right is very important. You really
Just wait till you see the dress I bought in Bath.
They held hands and smiled. Feeling a little dejected, Lewis arrived back at the station and loped down the corridor towards Morse's office.
Right, thanks. Miss A.M. She's Angela Stores. Who? Oh, they kept the file open. Alice Martin got off the murder because the only evidence was a confession from her daughter. Deborah, she was called. Gave it to an undercover policewoman, which the court ruled made it invalid. So, mother and daughter walked off without the proverbial stay. Changed their surname to Cullingham. Alice became Angela, Deborah Diane. And 10 years later, Angela Cullingham became Mrs. Angela Stores.
How did Owens know that?
He's the reporter. He could follow the story.
But if they got off, they can't be tried again. So how would he use...
Judicial rules don't apply in Fleet Street, Lewis. Especially if someone wants a story forgotten. And Stores, just imagine, a distinguished scholar about to become master of an Oxford college. His wife suddenly exposed as a murderess. We've cracked it, Lewis.
The Stores were in Bath last night. There is a conference. I got Jackson to check it out. They were served breakfast in the hotel room at 8 this morning.
Yes, but they were in Oxford when Rachel James was killed.
Yeah, but we're assuming it's the same killer, aren't we?
Well, perhaps when the first attempt went wrong, they hired someone to shoot Owens for them.
Fixed up a professional killer. Dr. and Mrs. Stores within 24 hours.
Well, if AM didn't kill Owens, that just leaves CB and DC. For the last 2 mornings, Dennis Cornford was jogging round Rousham with a highly respectable solicitor.
Well, then it must be Sir Walsid Bream.
Let's find out.
Meanwhile, Julian Stores watched as Angela, stunning in a silky brown evening dress, came slowly down the stairs. As she reached him, he moved forward to kiss her.
You know, sometimes I wonder why I married you. Other times, I know exactly.
Don't. You'll wreck the illusion.
Over at the Master's Lodge, Morse and Lewis were chatting with Green.
Owens was a bit of a crawler, but he didn't attempt to blackmail me, I assure you.
Why do you think your name was in his file?
I can't think. I mean, I've never done anything, so far as I remember.
I'm sure it would be something that you remember.
What else was in this file?
Nothing. That's what's so odd.
Where were you between 7 and 7:30 this morning, sir?
In bed. Have you any... One of the great lacks in my life, Chief Inspector, is a regular concubine. Look, this is really...
I'm sorry, sir, but if you wouldn't mind.
My wife died 3 years ago, since when My housekeeper comes in at 7:45 to make my breakfast. She saw me this morning at the usual time.
Got a car, sir?
Yes, but really it's quite preposterous to accuse me.
We're not accusing you, sir. Just trying to eliminate you from our inquiry.
Can you think of any reason why Owen should have kept the mastership?
Perhaps he knew something about one of the candidates for my succession. Oh, Julian Stores did spend his youth in the South Seas, measuring the size of women's breasts. Very important work, apparently, but a very discreet man. Dennis Cornford, though, went off to the Harvard Business School for a year, came back with the most appalling jargon, and one of his students for his wife. We know nothing about her. American women, you know, they have very different ideas to ours about what?
Shelley was running through the college grounds as fast as her high heels would allow.
She's very open, you know, about her ambition for her husband.
And Mrs. Storrs?
Angela, she's ambitious too, of course, but more subtle. Late marriage, not quite top drawer, but then these days. I like Angela. Look, I'm awfully sorry, but we have this feast and we have a most important guest, George Summers, Allied Steel Engineering. He's making a most generous donation to...
If you could just give me the name and address of your housekeeper, sir.
Oh, come. You honestly think...
I never think, sir. Don't get a degree.
Where the hell have you been? Chapel's in 5 minutes.
Why didn't you tell me?
Tell you what?
About you and Clixby's wife. Why didn't you tell me?
Outside in the quadrangle, a gowned procession calmly made its way towards the chapel as Morse and Lewis arrived. But in Cornsford's room, it was anything but calm.
For God's sake, get your clothes on. We'll talk about this later.
But you don't know what you've done. You don't know.
Clothes?
It's your fault.
What is my fault? 10 years ago. 8 years before I met you. For God's sake, this is all very old history. Anyway, who told you?
He did, of course. He's never forgiven you.
When did he say that? When was this?
This afternoon. He came round this afternoon.
He came round to tell you that? Why? What's going on between you two?
All you ever talk about is the mastership, the mastership. It's the only thing you care about. Well, if you wanted it that bad...
What?
He said he'd make sure you get it. I didn't know.
Wait. He said...
Yes.
And you?
Yes. So you could be master of Lonsdale Bastard College.
For God's sake, you are the stupidest. How could you fall? He's been screwing Angela Storrs for years. You honestly thought... Oh, my God. Shirley. How could you?
I was trying to help you.
You... filthy tar.
Stop it! Stop it!
I'll kill you!
He chased her out of the room, and a passing student watched as she headed for the stairs. She fell. In the chapel, the gathered dignitaries, blissfully unaware of the drama nearby, proceeded with the ceremony, as Lewis tried to revive Shelley.
Shelley, let me see. Shelley, oh my God, Shelley.
Ambulance. Lonsdale College. Emergency.
Amongst the throng, dressed in master's gown, was Breen. He glanced over at the Storrs and Angela in her new finery. She smiled knowingly to him. he turned to Dora Hammersby.
I've heard of mutton dressed as lamb, but never before as chicken.
Meanwhile, all Lewis's efforts had been in vain. He turned to Morse, who pressed a button on his phone and called the forensic team.
Morse. I'm at Lonsdale College. Get Dr. Hobson over here right away. We've got another violent death on our hands.
That evening in the college hall, the guests were seated at long wooden candle-lit tables. At the head table, next to Angela Storrs, stood Clixby Bring.
Your Grace. Benedict nobis Deus omnipotens, et his donis quae ex liberalitate tuas turis, per Iesum Christum Dominum nostrum. Amen.
Morse and Lewis had gone to Cornford's room.
Mr. Cornford. I'm very sorry, sir. Yes. It was an accident, of course. One of the students saw the whole thing. I'm very sorry we imagined, even for a moment.
You don't know what sorrow is.
Would you like to tell me exactly what happened?
She loved me so much. You go through life trying to... You think you've found... I'm withdrawing from the mastership, resigning my fellowship. I couldn't. Bream. I'd kill him. People who like tearing the wings off a butterfly.
I don't want to at a time like this, but you're really sure you can't help us about the death of Geoffrey Irons?
Irons, I'm sorry I can't. I only knew him on business. Am I going? She will.
Back in the hall, Breen was the life and soul of the party. He turned to Angela and with a smile put his hand on hers. An action that didn't go unnoticed by Julian, just 2 seats away. Later that night, the Storrs returned to their Bath hotel. Angela was in the passenger seat next to Julian, dozing. He turned to wake her.
We could have stayed at home, you know.
But you need to be fresh for tomorrow morning, Selina.
She leant across and kissed him tenderly. He smiled.
So I do.
And, passing the keys to the doorman, the couple strolled hand in hand towards the hotel. As Morse and Lewis made their way along the cobbles to their car,
DC?
A sudden thought struck Lewis.
There's someone else with the initials DC. Della Cecily.
She's Adele, not Della.
No, Owen's called Adela. Look, we've believed everything she's told us, haven't we? She pointed us at Dr. Storrs, and then she pointed us to Mr. Comfort. But everything diverted attention away from her. Now, perhaps she was having an affair with Owens, and he was two-timing her with Rachel James. Or maybe there was no mistaking the number of the house. She killed both of them.
Maybe she did.
A voice made Morse turn.
Morse?
It was Dr. Laura Hobson, packing equipment into a Range Rover.
Sad case.
Sad. How to tell you things like this? There's a pub down the road. Wouldn't like to buy me a drink.
I'd love to, but...
Oh, sorry, I forgot. Would you let me buy you a drink?
I'm sorry. There's someone I have to see.
Oh, well then, of course. No drinking on duty for Chief Inspector Morse. Right then. I'll see you at Bloxham Drive tomorrow morning. I think we should try and get there before the murder, don't you? Save a lot of time. Right, Morse.
Good night, Doctor.
Morse and Lewis made their way to Bloxham Drive and the house of Adele Cecil. So while Lewis waited outside, she poured Morse a drink in the kitchen. He dropped a newspaper on the counter.
Doing pretty well.
Well, people who do crosswords have blanks in their lives. They haven't a clue how to fill them. Don't you think?
When I told you Jeffrey Owens was blackmailing people, you didn't happen to be one of them.
What on earth could he blackmail me about?
Dennis Cornford.
Who the hell told you about that?
Dr. Storrs.
Julian Storrs should look to his own affairs.
What does that mean?
Him and Rachel. Then his daughter, the stepdaughter. Rachel told me she was living with a married man and he left a wife and 3 children. He was useless for Rachel.
You're not answering my question.
Oh, come on. Dennis and I were grown-ups. Neither of us was married. It all ended 3 years ago when you... And who on earth would care in this day and age anyway? God, you have to abuse children or dogs or... You suspected me all along, haven't you? Pretending to be nice when all the time...
Please. Something very tragic happened this evening. There was an accident. Mrs. Cornford is dead.
Oh, God. Oh. Oh, poor Dennis. That beautiful girl. He was so in love with her. Oh. Oh, poor Dennis.
Do you still love him, Adele?
No, I'm long over that, but...
Did you love Jeffrey Owens?
No.
Ever?
No!
Where were you at 7:30 this morning?
Down the road, shooting Jeffrey, of course. Just as I shot Rachel on Friday. Saturday mornings I'm disc jockey for the Nuffield Hospital radio between 6 a.m. and 9. About 20 people can tell you where I was between those hours. Satisfied?
Delighted. This can be a bugger of a job sometimes. You have to put aside all you know.
How you could possibly imagine.
You have to imagine everything.
So many deaths. So much horror. How can you bear it?
My mother was... I have an overwhelming sense of duty.
Even when it goes against your own interest?
Especially then. How can I make it up to you?
Well, you could start by telling me your name.
Morse. Everyone just calls me Morse. I do have a first name, of course, but I'd have to know you better.
You won't get to know me better if you don't tell me.
Right. My whole life's effort has revolved around Eve. 9 letters. And that is the truth, the whole truth.
Have another while I work it out.
I'd love to, but...
Better be off then. This, Quaker side of you, it doesn't overwhelm everything else, I hope.
Good night.
As he climbed into the car, Morse was still grinning.
Catching up on your sleep, Lewis?
Just thinking. Any joy?
Modified rapture. She is completely innocent.
Not completely. Her and Dennis Cornford.
What were you thinking about?
Someone else with the initials DC. Angela Storr's daughter, Diane Cullingham.
I'll pick you up at 6 in the morning. We're off to Bath.
As they drove through Bath next morning, it was obvious Lewis had other things on his mind.
They've got this exchange teacher over from France. Very young. They all hate French. She's no good at discipline, obviously. And the form got out of hand and...
Made her cry.
I feel so ashamed that he doesn't get enough of me time, my lad. That's the problem. Not enough quality time. And I told him off. He told me to get a life.
I said something like that to my dad once. He looked as though I'd hit him. He said, I've done what I can for you and... He said, I've done my best. tried to set you an example. If you think there's a better way to live, that's up to you, but I've done my best. And that's all anyone can say.
But that's just it. Have I?
Of course you have.
In the hotel, the maid climbed the winding stairs towards the store's room with the breakfast tray. Julian was exercising on the balcony. The maid put the tray down and went back into their suite.
If there's anything else you need, madam, please ring room service.
Thanks. That is non-fat milk.
1 non-fat, 1 ordinary.
Thanks.
By now, Morse and Lewis were also in the hotel and were walking across the courtyard with the young assistant.
They got here about 7:30 Friday evening and ate in the restaurant. Got the itemised bills if you want them.
Never know.
And as the stores ate breakfast on their balcony, downstairs in the manager's office,
What's celeriac?
It's a kind of root.
It's delicious.
Baked cod. We only have baked fish when the wife's slimming.
We always have a...
What did they have for Saturday breakfast?
Full English for both of them with hot chocolate.
Not slimming, eh?
For lunch, she just had a goat's cheese salad.
Which is?
And a bottle of red wine, which isn't. What did he have?
He was out at a conference and they had to go back to Oxford for dinner. But this morning, 1 full English breakfast with chocolate, the other special request for virtually fat-free milk with Weetabix, natural yoghurt and brown toast and decaffeinated coffee.
Why would anyone suddenly change her habits like that?
Perhaps she didn't. Perhaps it was 2 different women.
through the window, Morse saw Julian Storrs walking along the path, about to leave the hotel.
How many single women were staying here on Friday night?
I could soon find out for you.
Just tell Sergeant Lewis. Morning, sir.
Hello, what are you doing here?
Working, sir, same as you are. Could I have a moment?
Yes, but I'm due at my conference at 9.
I shan't keep you long, sir. Where's Mrs. Storr?
She's sleeping in. Look, you don't need to tell her about...
No. I'll walk with you.
In the manager's office, Lewis watched as the assistant searched her computer for the booking list.
Mrs. Livingston, she's a regular. Takes her son out from school most weekends. Miss or Mrs., probably Miss Caroline Gore. She's still here. American. And Miss Diane Cullingham. We've not seen her before.
Miss Cullingham, where does she live?
Tame. Near Oxford.
Enjoying the hotel? The food here. You and your wife, you're gourmets, I understand.
Well, I am. My wife, alas, is diabetic, which means she's rather limited in what she...
Does the name Geoffrey Owens mean anything to you, sir?
The Oxford mailman? Yes, he rang me just the other day. Why?
He was shot yesterday morning by the same gun that shot Miss James.
Good God.
He was Miss James's next-door neighbour.
Really? No, I didn't know that.
No?
Oh, God, what a dreadful thing. For heaven's sake, I mean...
Did Miss James ever talk to you about him, sir?
Not that I recall. I mean, I really don't remember her ever saying anything about it. But then, we didn't have much time for that kind of...
All right, sir. But you do understand why I felt obliged to see you.
Yes, of course.
if anything does occur to you, at what time will you be back from your conference?
To tell you the truth, I was planning to skip the 11 o'clock session. It's about Laplanders, and they're not really my wife and I were planning to take a walk.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Leaving Storrs speechless, Morse returned to the hotel.
Diane Cullingham, spent Friday night only. Thought so. Lives in Tame. DC Jackson's on standby.
Well done, Lewis. Right, Storrs went back to 11. Get Jackson to confirm she is who we think she is.
Morse picked up a newspaper.
Meanwhile, you haven't got a pound, have you? I seem to have... Right. You improve your mind with that, Lewis. But first, ask the maid if she thinks it was the same woman she saw in the Storrs room both days. And we may need some collaboration from our local colleagues.
Right, sir.
You'll find me in the Dower House.
Lewis went to the kitchen to question the maid.
There's so many breakfasts.
It's important, Kathy.
I think... Well, I definitely saw this morning. Yesterday. She was still sort of under the bedclothes. Just sort of grunted.
So you couldn't swear it was the same woman?
I wouldn't want...
Thanks.
As Morse relaxed on a bulging sofa, a waitress brought him a tray of coffee as he gave the crossword his usual best attention. He saw Angela Storrs walking alongside the French windows. She came in and sat at the end of the room with the newspaper. Outside, Lewis had news on the phone.
Thanks.
As he saw Storrs returning to the hotel.
Thanks very much.
He went to find Morse.
How are you doing?
The AZ puzzle is the best in the world, Lewis. No question about that. But some of the words, you need a dictionary.
I thought you'd swallowed one at birth. Storrs.
Julian Storrs approached from the courtyard and came through the door to join Angela, touching her arm gently.
Hello, darling.
Hello, darling.
Ready for your walk? I'm sorry, sir. Madam. Oh, this is my sergeant, Sergeant Lewis. I wonder if you mind answering some questions about the deaths of Rachel James and Jeffrey Owen. Shall we...
Meanwhile, Diane Cullingham opened the door to some unexpected visitors.
Miss Cullingham? DC Jackson. May I come in?
I know where you were alleged to be on Friday morning, madam, but where were you on Friday night and Saturday morning?
I was here, at the hotel.
When?
What do you mean, when? I was here all night. We got here, what time was it, Julian?
It would be 6:30, 7 o'clock.
We never left the hotel.
Sure about that, madam?
You can ask the concierge. He took the car away, didn't bring it back till yesterday afternoon. We had to go to Oxford for the feast.
Ah, but Mrs. Storrs didn't need your car Friday night, did you, madam? Not when you had your daughters. Diane Cullingham is your daughter.
And she did stay here Friday night. In another room in the hotel. Taking your place in your bed sometime early on Saturday morning, while you drove back to Oxford in her car, waited till 7 o'clock, then went to call on Geoffrey Owens, by arrangement, I presume. You'd told him you'd got the money he wanted in return for his silence. He was blackmailing you about the strange death of your first husband. But of course you couldn't trust him, could you? So you shot him, just as you shot Rachel James by mistake the previous morning.
Now look here, Inspector.
Do you want to make a statement now, sir? Because if so, I must caution you. You are a diabetic, Mrs. Stores.
Yes.
But your daughter is not. She eats a hearty breakfast, while you...
Bloody fool! You... None of this had anything to do with me, Inspector. I didn't even know she'd killed her first husband.
That's right, blame me. While you were with that child, I was going to make us master.
Angela Stores, I'm arresting you on the charge of the murders of Rachel James and Geoffrey Owens. You don't have to say anything unless you wish to do so. Then you do say maybe written down, please.
Later, Morse and Lewis went to the college to see Breen.
Well, what can I say? One fellow of the college and his wife are arraigned for murder. Another suspected of pushing his wife downstairs.
No, he isn't. It was an accident. One entirely of your making.
Oh, come. I mean, I'm very sorry. Appalled. But really, one little act of infidelity.
Destroyed her.
That's very melodramatic, officer. But since both candidates have now withdrawn, I suppose I shall simply have to soldier on.
Oh, if you attempt to do that, sir, I shall see that the full details of your deceit of Mrs. Cornford are made known to the press.
For the first time in years, Bream's grin deserted him.
That is blackmail.
You deserve 10 years. The sooner you leave Oxford, the better, sir.
Back at the station, Morse followed Strange into his office.
Well done, Morse. Very well done.
So, let's see if I've got this clear. Julian Stores murdered Kenneth Martin, right?
No, sir. Mrs. Stores, then Martin, murdered her then husband, Kenneth, with the help, not entirely willing perhaps, of her daughter, Diane.
I see. How come she was such a good shot?
Her first husband bought her a gun. She was a member of a gun club, practiced regularly. And, of course, on him.
Well, I think you've done what you and Lewis... I was talking to the Chief Constable only 10 minutes ago.
Arranging another match?
I'm giving up golf.
Better than giving up work, sir?
Yes, well, on days like today when things go well, I feel I will soldier on.
That's the spirit, sir. That which we are, we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield.
Are you feeling all right, Morse?
Tennyson, sir. My father made me learn it by heart.
Later, Morse and Lewis paid a visit to the local.
You made it.
What else do I have to do on a Sunday? Hang around pubs for a policeman.
You haven't met Sergeant Lewis, have you? Adele Cecil.
Hi. Hello.
What do you have to drink?
Malt, that's all right.
It's very all right. Lewis, you're in the chair. What? You still owe me a pint from 2 days ago.
Lewis should have been used to Morse by now, but shaking his head, he moved to the bar.
This anagram, around Eve. I've tried, but all I can come up with is endeavour. And no one's called Endeavour.
Within earshot, Lewis turned round.
Surely.
I told you my mother was a Quaker. And Quakers sometimes call their children names like hope and patience. My father was obsessed with Captain Cook, and his ship was called Endeavour.
As Lewis came over with the drinks, the look on his face told Morse he now knew his best-kept secret.
Why aren't you both laughing?
Of course not.
I'm not calling you Endeavour.
Call him sir. He likes that.
Oh, no. No, I'll stick to Morse, like everyone else.
Cheers.
Relief spread over Morse's face. He raised his pint and nodded. Sometime later, Morse's Jaguar drew up outside that same Bath hotel. Morse got out, accompanied by Adele Cecil.
Will you be wanting the car this evening, sir?
Certainly not.
If you'd just give me the keys then, sir.
Are we going to have room service or go down to dinner?
I thought perhaps both.